All right, friend, it's so great to have you a part of this Learn to Listen series. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Cynthia.
Absolutely. It's so great. And I love seeing that twirl sign behind your head.
I know. I had to come here today. I'm like, I'm going to zoom in from twirl.
That's great. I love it. I love it. Well, you've got a lot to share about what you're doing. And obviously we see, it's Dance for All. So why don't you share a bit about who you are, maybe your past with dance and where you are now? We'd love to hear.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So I grew up not dancing. And, I went to a very academic high school that kind of was grooming us all to be doctors and lawyers. And there was no arts programs at all at school. And at the age of 16, so I'm going to adjust this. At the age of 16, I was a senior in high school. I graduated a little young. On a whim, I auditioned because I grew up in Orlando. I auditioned for the Disney Christmas Parade as a dancer because a girl in my school was a dancer in the parades. And I was like, that looks like a cool gig. And so no dance training, nothing. I auditioned and I got hired, which was a miracle. And it wasn't really, the guys at the time did not have dance training for the parades. If you were coordinated and you could smile and be on the right foot at the right time, they would hire you. I got hired and I loved it. And I loved to dance. And when I was 19, a girl that so I kept that job as a parade dancer. That was much better than working fast food or anything else my friends were doing. And I kept that through college. And at 19, the girl said, hey, why don't you take some dance classes? You look like you have potential. I had graduated to like the best dance roles in the parades, and I had no technique, obviously, with no training. So I said, sure. And she's like, take from my ballet teacher. He's really great. She's like, you really need ballet. And I'm like, okay, so I'll do it. So just for fun, I took ballet and I took it through college. And I actually found this the other day. When I graduated, I have an undergrad degree in hospitality management. I was going to go into the hotel field. And I actually was going to get my MBA. And I took the GMAT? Is that what the test is? I took whatever the test was to get the MBA. I applied for MBA schools, got accepted. But then I went to some auditions because I was graduating from college and I got hired to work at Busch Gardens in Virginia. So I left my parade dancer job at Disney. That was going to be my transition job. I was going to get my dance yayas out at Busch Gardens in Virginia for the summer and go back to Orlando and work at hotels and maybe go to grad school. And I got back to Orlando. I couldn't get a job in a hotel with a degree in it, which was weird. But then I went to auditions and I got hired for dance jobs. So for bigger dance jobs, and I never kind of looked back. So I went to Tokyo Disneyland, I worked there. I graduated from parade dancers to show dancers, which are two different kind of tiers and levels at Disney World. Once they saw that Busch Gardens hired me, then Disney was interested in me for the shows. So I got hired for shows and I did that. I worked on a cruise ship. I worked for Princess Cruises and sailed the Mediterranean there. And I worked at other theme parks in Orlando, Universal and SeaWorld. And when I kind of felt like I'd done everything I could do in Orlando, I moved to New York City. I toured with West Side Story, Beauty and the Beast. When it was on Broadway, I toured the Broadway production there. I worked at Radio City Music Hall and the Christmas Spectacular. Did a lot of regional theater around the country. Met my wife in New York, moved back to Orlando, and I was not going to dance anymore. I felt like I was going to get a legit job and have a legit career, and I had no job. So I auditioned for Disney World again. And they hired me again for Beauty and the Beast, which is a show I had done before. And I had done the Broadway production on the road. And then I was back in Beauty and the Beast. And I was like, holy cow. And it was temporary. It was my temporary job until I found something better to do. And that temporary job lasted another 13 years. So I went from Beauty and the Beast to Finding Nemo the Musical. When that show opened, I was like, I had Beauty and the Beast and myself out. I loved that show, but I needed a change. So when Finding Nemo was opening, I didn't even know what it was. I told the casting director, I want to be in the show. He's like, dude, it's not a dance show. It's more singing. I'm like, I don't care. They didn't see me that way, but I auditioned and I actually got hired for the original opening cast. And I ended up being the dance captain in that show. So I performed in the show. I rehearsed people into the show. And that's kind of professionally where I was at. So I left Disney World full-time 4 years ago to move to Pennsylvania. We kind of outside of Philly, opened a dance studio, Twirl, right there.
Love it.
Had a vision. We moved here. We didn't really know anybody. We had no family here. We moved here in August. We opened in September, hung a sign, and people came, and it's been a miracle for that. So that's kind of where it's at professional wise. Teaching wise, I started transitioning to teaching master classes later in my last years of New York. I toured with Dance Revolution as a teaching musical theater dance with them. I taught master classes for Project Dance. And then I got brought into the Disney Performing Arts program, which was kind of like a whole second job for me besides performing. So I taught dance workshops there. I was resident director for their Disney Broadway Magic workshops. I helped develop workshops for them. And then my last year, I actually coached the other teaching artists. So I would observe their workshops and coach them and give them feedback on how to, what was working, what could be improved. And so that was kind of where I was at teaching wise. So we transitioned to being a studio owner, which is crazy because I didn't even grow up in a dance studio. I knew nothing about dance studios, but that's just where God had us. And we opened Twirl, and it's been a huge success. And so we're very happy. So that's kind of where we're at there. In the middle of it all, while I was in Finding Nemo, had extra time on my hands because the schedule was so great for me that I decided to go to grad school. I got a master's degree in religion from Reformed Theological Seminary. So I did that kind of a distance thing. They have a campus in Orlando. I took a few classes on campus in Orlando. And then I went to Charlotte. The program I was in was based out of Charlotte, their Charlotte campus. So I was back and forth from Charlotte a couple of times there. And I have a degree in religion from RTS. So which is awesome. I mean, theology's always been a passion of mine and something I've always loved. Weirdly enough, as an artist, I connect my faith more intellectually than emotionally, which is maybe a little rare for artists, but that's kind of my connection to God and theology is a little more intellectual than it is emotional for me. So there I am. Here I am.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And I remember all those transitional times. I remember just connecting in and talking with you and praying with you about, okay, we're going to shift and do this whole, new thing up in Pennsylvania. And hey, I'm thinking of going back to school. And so it's just great. I love that you are an educator for sure. I mean, I've seen you teach class and you're very inspiring and very clear and articulate. But you're a big old student too. You love to learn, and I love that about you. Yeah, I love that about you.
I'm gonna take some sips of Starbucks. Sorry, there's a Starbucks literally right next door. Like we walk to it, and so I'm sorry.
No worries. Go for it.
It's like we're having coffee together, even though I know you hate coffee.
Yeah, I know you know that. But here's my smoothie, so I'll have a sip of that here in a second too.
Take a sip of your smoothie.
Yeah. So obviously in this whole transitional time, you've had to listen. And I know that faith has been a part of your journey, but just in our Learn to Listen series, just really loving to hear from people about how they've cultivated that discipline of listening. How has that been developed for you?
That's so weird. And you probably wouldn't even be interviewing me if you knew this. I'm a terrible listener. And actually, my wife, Amy, and I were talking about this last night. And I didn't even tell her that this was even called that because she would probably say, Sam, you need to cancel right now. But I'm so bad. And we were having this conversation about how I'm such a bad listener. I'm so distracted. I'm awful. And she was like, really, I'm sorry. I have nothing. No, I don't have it. I'm not going to say nothing. I'm very you can tell by my energy, I'm very distracted, but you do kind of have to listen. In those times that I have slowed down, God has spoken to us. And actually it was New Year's Eve. I don't even know what year it was, a long time ago. Amy and I sat down on New Year's Eve. We didn't go to a party. We didn't get together. And we sat down with a pad of paper and a pencil and what is our next step going to be? Mm-hmm. And having this grad school degree from RTS was to me maybe going to be a ticket into transferring into higher education, working in a university setting like that. That'll have been where you were at or something like that, working in a musical theater program. And so we made a list of pros and cons of all the things that I could do. Work at a university, blah, blah. And dance studio, the pros were this short and the cons were this. And you know what? We prayed and we were and the pros on the other list were this pros, cons, this. And we prayed and we're okay, dance studio. And I was this is wild. It doesn't even work out on paper.
Yeah.
But that just seemed to be, we're okay.
Yeah.
But it was years, we didn't like pack up and move to the dance. That was probably a couple of years out from doing this, but we're like, okay, dance studio. And before that, Philadelphia had been on our hearts, moving up back to the Northeast. But as far as listening goes, honestly, I'm terrible. And so I think where God talks to me when it comes to listening, and I'll tell you where I am good, because I am good at one point, but where God has to talk to me is in bed at night, when I can't hear anything, when I can't see anything, when I'm laying there still. I have some insomnia issues, but it's because God's like, okay, dude, you know, nothing's happening right now, so let's chat, you know. So that's when I hear God, you know. And I carve out some quiet time, which is still hard for me, but really it's at night when I'm in bed and I'm just laying there trying to sleep and can't. That's when God takes the time to talk to me. Yeah. So that's when I can, you know, and I listen, you know. Then that's my time.
Yeah, because that's beautiful.
During the day, it's like,
yeah,
you know, look at that. What's this? What's that? Go. But the one thing I will say that I feel like that's been a win for me listening wise is with my body. Yeah. Because I danced for over 20 years at Disney, and that's like 5 shows a day, you know, Radio City, 5 90-minute shows a day, some days, like hard work, not easy dance gigs. So, you know, 20 years at Disney, 7.5 years in New York, like, you know, cruise ships, all that. But I've never had any injuries other than maybe like rolling an ankle here or two. And this is why. The minute my knees start to hurt even a little bit, I would be like, okay, what's going on? Like, and I always went back to dance technique. What technically am I doing wrong that's making my knee hurt? Am I turning out from my hips? Am I in the right alignment? Is my knee tracking over my foot when I'm in plie? Yeah. Am I plieing? Am I landing in plie? And once I would always tweak my technique in my performance, because it's repetitive. You do the same show 5 times a day, 5 days a week. I mean, good grief, you know, all that wear and tear on your body, never an injury, because I listen to my body. And I would, and this is for any dancer who's listening to this or any teacher, technique is so important because it's going to prevent your injuries. Yeah. Ballet is in place. If it's done correctly, you will not get injured. Yeah. Are your heels coming down when you're jumping? Yeah. When you take off on your landing, you know, am I on the outside of my foot? You know, am I turning on the outside of my foot? All that, I always went back to my technique. So I was always super in tune with my body and trying to figure out, okay, because this pain goes too much, I'm done. I'm toast, you know. I don't have a career. So I've always kind of have been in tune to my body and tweaking and jumping on that right before any injury kind of came about. So
that's good. Well, and I think that, I mean, I'm 57, 58 in February, and just continuing to walk with Jesus since early, 80s, 1981. And I just keep learning about these kinds of things, listening to your body and how important that is. And sometimes I know that we put our focus on, you read the scriptures and that's God's communication to us. And it is. I do it every single day.
Of course, yeah.
But listening to your body, this is where the Spirit of God dwells. And so the Spirit wants us to succeed. The Spirit wants us to flourish. And so that is holding every thought captive to Christ. All those things tie in. So for me, it's not any less of a listening because you've done that, that's helped you to perpetuate this career. And I know you, and I know that in those interchanges with your cast and other people, you're shining light and you're bringing about opportunities to share God's love with them as he brings that about on your heart. And so for me, all of it's holistic. It just weaves together. And
Absolutely.
So it is a listening. It just might be the same person who gets some kind of other epiphany or dreams and visions or whatever. It's just all of those ways I think are so incredibly valid. Very, very valid.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
100%.
I love that. Well, so discipline, obviously you've had to have that discipline. You're talking about technique.
Sure.
You has been a part of that. And you've had leadership roles in your career in different endeavors. And obviously now huge leadership role as you're operating and owning, you and Amy, with this studio. What are other leadership qualities you feel are important ones that you've either cultivated or you encourage people to cultivate?
I think any Christian would say this, and tell me if this isn't the number one answer, is being a servant leader. Is that what you hear from most people when
I hear that? That's a really good one. Other ones just, well, it really depends where people are. Part of it is this discipline. Part of it is, just consistency. Some of them, like, it just varies. So, but servant heartedness is huge.
Definitely, and it's never lording over your power over people. It's always coming at them as how can I serve you? And I think Jesus modeled that perfectly for us, But, always like to my teachers here or the people at Finding Nemo where I'm the dance captain or whatever, it's just how can I serve you? You know what I mean? Like, not how can I lord over you, but how can what do you need? What do you need from me? Like, I have power. I can give you things. I can do things for you. What do you need from me? What can I do to help you set you up for success? What's going to help you do your job better? All that I feel like is super important. And then with that, you gain trust and you gain loyalty and then you gain productivity, you know what I mean? And if they know that you love them and that you care about them, they're going to want to give you their best. And that's what you want as a leader, right? You want your team, whoever's working under you, with you. I don't want to say under you because it's, but you know what I mean? I think that you want that just increases everything bubbles up when you do that,
So I just want to encourage you that probably you have a little bit more listening skills than you've given yourself credit for, because you had to hear them, right? And whatever it was, you had to hear what they said. And maybe it was like, okay, you tell me in 2 minutes or tell me in 2 sentences. You might draw limits around it, but still there is a listening there. Well,
of course. Somewhat, totally.
Yeah,
just nothing good. Long and drawn out. But like you said, you need this? Okay, done.
Right. I'm done. Next.
Don't tell me a long story.
No, just be yeah, I appreciate that. That's good. So with your endeavors, you've been able to travel a lot and interchange in the secular arena. Some of the things you mentioned with Project Dance and Dance Revolution, those are Christian arenas. Right. What do you feel like God's doing out there today in the world, both as an artist, just as a leader? Just what are you seeing that's happening in the arts, or just in particular, anything you want to contribute to?
I have no idea. I have no idea what God's doing. I really don't. Like, that's such a good question. And, God does not talk to me about that, And so I feel like Randy Flynn has like a direct God on speed dial, and he would be like, this is where God has the arts in the world today, right here. And he would be like 90% accurate. But I don't know, honestly, but this is, I mean, obviously we're in a weird time right now with the arts, especially in the commercial side, especially with live performances. Good grief, God has put the pause button on so many things, and I don't know why, and I don't know what's going on, but this is what I see. So this is just what I observe, is that the blatantly Christian art that's out there, particularly the dance, which is what I'm connected to, the quality that I have seen is blowing me away right now. Do you agree with that? Like absolutely. 15 years ago, it was not like this. No. The dance companies, the dancers, the choreography it's just mind blowing. And it's what I see on social media. It's what I see. Randy Flynn had a damn dance company at Messiah College, university, whatever, which is nearby. We went to see his performance. Good grief, they've always done gorgeous work, but it just gets better and better. What I see, Arrows, Jeff and Natalie Lewis, what they're doing with Arrows, those dancers, amazing. Jeremiah and Mona at the Culture House in Kansas City have always done great work, but everything just keeps, I feel like the quality is just getting better. And I don't know I can't say what God's doing with this or whatever. All I can say is from my observation is just the quality is just, it wasn't that way. 15 years ago, there were a few that were good, that were great, and the rest were like, eh. Now it's just like, this is what I see at Project Dance. don't even remember the name. Is it Ballet Excelsior? Is that one of the ones that we see at New York? Like, just amazing. So I feel like that's really cool. And I love that. And that's encouraging. And that's like the overt, like the ones that are just like Christian dance companies that are very evangelical, you know, they are there to spread the gospel. They're, so I feel like that's great. And I love that. But what is going on? What is God doing with it? I don't know. I just know that he's definitely cool to buy that we're seeing like great quality out there. And I love that, you know?
Yeah, it's amazing. So, yeah, I'm totally in agreement with you. I've had conversations with friends and we've conversed about this in the past too. It's just, when you look at our generations of people that we have started to teach and watching them now, and then they're teaching the next generation, and how it's this, you know, prolific and just expanding amount of people who are foundational in their Christian faith, as well as really making a huge difference and impact. And we're contending with what's out there in the world. And I think that that's really beautiful and something that God is doing and using. And it is, I agree with you. It's a little challenging to figure out why, how is it all going?
Where is he going with it?
Yeah, I think that's to be determined for sure. Yeah. But I think we're going to just keep riding that wave and just keep blessing everybody to keep reaching that level of excellence, which is, I think,
so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even Dance Revolution, what they're doing, that convention just gets better and better. Like since I left, like Michelle wouldn't have me back now because I'm not going to, they're so good. It's like, oh my gosh, you know, when I've dropped in to visit, you know, it's like everything just keeps getting better and better. And I love it, you know, and that's the way it should be, you know, and like you said, you know, as the world, whatever shifts and changes, it's definitely lending legitimacy to this art form.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I love that.
So your creative process, do you have one? I'm kidding. You're like,
oh my gosh,
pull this together. Like when I know that it has been like the arts and entertainment and that whole industry. Tell us about it. What's it like for you?
You don't want to hear about my choreographic process because it's so boring and it's like molasses on the cold day. It's literally, I have to listen to a song probably 3,000 times, and I'll look at the clock and I'll be like, oh my gosh, 20 minutes, and I've got 2 counts of 8 done. Like seriously, Sam, get it together. I'm so slow. I'm awful. But this is what I've learned in the kind of in the world of the marketplace, in the commercial world. I had an opportunity, the show director for Finding Nemo did other directing gigs around town, and there was a professional theater called Orlando Repertory Theater. It's a TY, it's a theater for young audiences. The actors get paid, they do 8 shows a week. They run the shows for a couple months. They bust school kids in during the week. They open it, gorgeous shows, huge budget. They brought her in to direct a show. She said, I was her dance captain for Finding Nemo. She's like, I need Sam to come in and choreograph the show. I'm like, never choreographed a show before, so let's do it. She didn't know that. I didn't tell her. But I was like, okay, here we go. So we're at the table. You have these meetings with the lighting director, the costume designer, the set designer, the choreographer, blah, blah, blah. Everyone's at this meeting trying to figure out what the show is going to be before you start rehearsal. And this is kind of what my takeaway from this was. A few stories. First of all, there was this really horrible. The show was based on a children's book series called Ivy and Bean. Someone had written a musical about it. There was a song about sports. It was awful. That had a choreograph. There was a dance number, and it had a couple of references to soccer, but it was mainly about sports. And I was like, please, can I change it to basketball? You know, no, this basketball has nothing to do with the show. The kids' places to talk about soccer. You have to do it. And I was like, a dance number about soccer, you know, what am I going to do? So I went and I said, hey, I've got these, I don't know, you know, I've got these soccer balls. We can put them on bungees and we can do like with the net, you know, we could do some stuff with that. Or I can get like, they have these like legit regulation soccer balls that will light. If I bounce them really hard, they light up. You know, I could use those, you know, and they were like, you know, can I have one or the other? And they were like, why does it have to be one or the other? Get both. And I was like, I can have both. And they were like, yeah. And I created this really cool number, and they were, you know, this choreography with these bungees. And then in the middle, they bounced them, the lights dimmed, and they lit up, and it was really cool. And and I was like, wow, they're letting me have all this stuff. And they're like, yeah. And so and then the second thing, we're in this meeting, And there's a reference to this mound of dirt in the script, and there was this set designer, and I was like, you know, he's like, okay, he's showing us pictures, and I'm like, can the kids in the show, can they walk on the mound of dirt? And they're like, no. I'm like, we need them to walk on them. I feel like that's really important. You know, if there's a mound of dirt on the stage, the kids watching the show are going to wonder, why am I not playing on that? You know, the kids, if anyone sees dirt, the kids are going to run and want to play on it. He's like, you know, he's like, no, it's too hard. We can't do that. And the artistic director was like, no, he wants the kids to be on the dirt, make it happen, you know? And the set designer was like, okay. And he did. And then we had a dirt, and I used it for choreography. And then and all that taught me was like, say yes. You know what I mean? Like, what, you know, it's hard. Like a number about soccer is hard. You know, like basketball would have been easy, but they were like, no, do a number about soccer. To make a mound of dirt hard, not impossible. Do it. Just make it happen. And the fact that they said yes to everything, and they never said no. And the same when we opened Finding Nemo the Musical, anything the director wanted, he got. In the middle of the creative process, putting the show on its feet. No one had done a big puppet show like this before. And people were like, hey, why don't we do this? And he's like, you know what? That sounds like a great idea, you know? And Disney, you know, and so creatively, I took that away, like, say yes. Like, you know, God gives you a vision, like, not like, I mean, yeah, you have to count the cost, but, you know, for the business here, you know, if you budget your money and if you run your business where you can make a profit, where you can say yes to these things. When teachers come to me, when we're having a show and say, hey, Sam, can I, and I'm like, don't even finish the sentence, answer is yes. What do you need? I just, you know, can we have these lights, these finger lights? And yes, can they all be green? If I can find 15 green finger lights, you're in. So it was really kind of a lesson for me to, you know, to creatively, to say yes first and figure it out later, you know?
Good.
Like I had this vision of having kites. We did a show about the seasons and I want to have kites. And the teacher's like, how are you going to use that? And I'm like, I don't know. And I ordered the kites and they were like, are you going to put them on sticks? I'm like, I don't know. I had the kites. We could run around, have them on strings. I could put them on sticks, whatever. I played with them. You know, what I did was rigged handles on the back and they did these patterns and it was so cool. But say yes and then figure it out later, you know, and creatively it opens up the world of possibilities when you don't overanalyze and say, yeah, I don't know, kites, what are we going to do with those, you know? Is it going to work if we have it on sticks? You know what? Order the kites and make it work, you know?
Yeah. That's good.
I don't know. That's, you know, and that's kind of how they work in the real world, you know?
Yeah.
People have ideas that are creative and then you just figure out how to do it.
That's
you know?
good. That's so good. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I read through the Bible this year. So today ended the 365-day reading. And today I'm starting the new reading for 2021. And so it's in Genesis 1 and creation. It's creation, creation. And so as you're talking, I'm like, God didn't say no. God was like, poof, choo, poof, choo. You know, it was amazing. Yeah. And when we tap into that understanding of artistry, when we tap into that massive amount of creativity, then what's there to say no to? You know, it's just, it's endless, the possibility. No, it's so phenomenal.
And you're exactly right. And, you know, I mean, two things about that Genesis thing. First, we're created in God's image and God is a creator, you know, and we see that at the very beginning. We don't create ex nihilo, like out of nothing, but we create, you know, and the second thing is it's a response to that cultural mandate and where he says, be fruitful and fill and subdue the earth. I mean, creating is subduing the earth, is taking chaos and making order out of it. And that's like in the very first, you know, in the beginning, the earth was a formless void, right? It has nothing, it had no form. It was chaos. And then God made order out of that, you know, and that's as image bearers, that's what we do as artists. We take a bunch of things that aren't related and we put them together and make an orderly something out of it, you know? So you're exactly, it's right there in Genesis 1 and 2.
Yeah.
So
it's good. It's good. I love the timing of that reading today and connecting with you and the whole theology. I know you could share a lot of things that have inspired you. Actually, I'm going to ask you that just from the scriptures. Have you felt inspired from other passages or other stories that have influenced you in some way as a dancer, as an artist? I mean, I know you're working in the secular marketplace,
Right. Yeah.
but in any way, have you felt like that's been, besides the creative process for you?
Have I been inspired? No, I mean, I can't, nothing comes like, I can't be
Yeah,
like, oh yeah, totally this, that, or the other. Um, you know, really just, I mean, it's really the fact that I always go back to the fact, like, why can't I think of anything new? And I'm thinking,
yeah,
you know what? How many millions of people on the earth, and we all have different faces,
yeah,
you know, and you can't think of how many, it's 5 different dance steps, Sam, like, get it
yeah,
together. You know what I mean? Like, you can tap into this, you know,
yeah,
like, look at what God's done. Look how many different kind of animals there are. Look how many different kind of plants there are. Like, if I sat down to draw different kind of plants, I might come up with 50 and be done. You know what I mean? God made like millions.
yeah,
So I always go back to that, and you know, that's something that I feel like I kind of will go back to and say,
yeah,
hey, this is really cool. Just nothing specific, but just the general overarching, like, this is, you know, or, you know, what kind of redemptive story can we get out of this? You know, what kind of, you know, how can I serve like Jesus served? You know, how can
yeah,
I, like, wash their feet? But it's never been anything super specific. It's
yeah,
just like, it's more broad picture has affected me than, like, oh, you know, the story of Jonah really, like,
yeah,
gets me right here. You know,
yeah.
it's not as specific as that for me. Yeah.
Yeah, and you articulated at the beginning, it's just that feeler part of some and that cognitive place
Sure.
and the
Hmm.
analytical, which is amazing because we're all wired differently. You know, my
Absolutely.
husband is a feeler and he's an incredible man, and
Yeah. I can
he's
see that from him.
yeah, he's just, and he's deep, and his art is rich, and it just
Yeah.
plucks the heartstring.
Yeah.
And there's others that are more analytical in their approach. It doesn't mean it's any less valid. It just
No.
means that it's a different depth, and we need it
Right.
all. We definitely
Yeah,
need
absolutely.
it all to validate and reach all the different other people out there that have those different modes of operating. That's awesome. To anything in closing, just that you would like to share, anything that's on your heart? I know that you've got like business tips because you've spoken before in our careers in dance class. You've got industry things that you've shared before. Just don't know if there's anything that rises up that just an admonishment or entering a new year, or just anything that comes to heart.
I don't know. I mean, I just feel not all I can think of is just that, you know, just that diversity that we have, like, as Christians and as artists, you know what I mean? Everyone's doing something different, and I think that's really cool. You know, like, what we're doing here is not what they're doing in Houston. You know what I mean? It's which isn't different from what Cheryl's doing
Yeah.
and Cheryl Cotlip is doing, and Boone with Project Dance and Carolina Snowbills and everything. And it's just interesting how we're all different kind of parts of the body, right? You know, and no one's doing the same. We're all, like, got our hand in different areas, but in no better, no worse, no better, no greater, lesser than everybody else. But God has his hand in so many different areas. Marketplace, you know, this isn't, we don't have doves and crosses at Twirl, but I'm a Christian business owner, you know, and I run the business with Christian principles, you know, and, you know, share that light with these people, not in an overt way that's like preaching to them, but in a way that hopefully, you know, we're not harvesters, we're waterers, you know, or whatever. So, but I think it's really cool how in the dance world that God has the bases covered in so many different ways, you know. That's just kind of what struck me, you know, kind of looking over your YouTube and all the people that you've interviewed, and just everyone's in a different place, you know. And I just think that's really cool, and that's really encouraging.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that is a good way just for us to remember that we don't have to fit the same mold as somebody else.
Absolutely
And if
not.
we do, that goes back contrary to what you were saying a moment ago about look at the, billions of different kinds of faces. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's so much diversity out there. And if we're trying to model exactly and mold after what's been done before, then we're probably going to miss out on exactly what it is that God has for us.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
That's beautiful. Well,
Yeah.
I'm I'm so thankful to have this time with you, and I just bless you and just the family.
Thanks,
And as we're
Cynthia.
entering this new year, and just
Likewise.
so thankful for what you're doing, and just really excited for what 2021 has for you, my friend.
You too, Cynthia. Thanks. This has been awesome. Always love talking to you. So it's been great.
Wonderful.
So,
thank you, my friend.
okay. Well, have a good one. Enjoy your new grand.
Yeah, I know. Excited.
So exciting. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Have fun.
Thank you. All right.
Bye.
Awesome. Did it.
Cool. Sweet. So we're done.